Good day, ABM Business Math learners. I am Ma'am Yang, and once again, welcome to my class. Before we proceed in solving problems related to fractions, decimals, and percent, let us review first the four fundamental operations on fraction, which are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Let's do first the addition of fraction, where we learn how to add like fractions, unlike fractions, and also adding mixed numbers. Adding like fractions. So what are like fractions? These are the fractions with the same denominator. So in adding this, we just simply add the numerators and place the total over the denominator. For example, we have here 2 over 9 plus 3 over 9. So add the numerators. 2 plus 3 is equal to 5 over our denominator, which is 9. So 2 over 9 plus 3 over 9 is equal to 9. But then, if the total of our numerator is the same as our original denominator, we have to convert our answer to a whole number. And if the total is larger than our original denominator, we have to convert our answer into a mixed number. For example, we have here 2 over 4 plus 2 over 4 is equal to 4 over 4. Now, since our denominator and numerator is as the same values, we have to convert this into a whole number, which is 1. And then the next example is 5 over 9 plus 6 over 9. So we have to add the numerator, that will be 11, and then copy the denominator 9. So 11 over 9 is in the improper fraction, or our numerator is larger than our denominator. We have to convert this into a mixed number. So the mixed number equivalent to 11 over 9 is 1 and 2 over 9. Now let us proceed in adding unlike fractions. Unlike fractions are fractions with different denominators. So we have here an example: 1/3 plus 1/8 plus 3/9 plus 1/12. The first thing that we do is to find the LCD. So the LCD for this, or the lowest common denominator for this four numbers, is 72. Okay, so now we have already found the LCD. Next step that we do is to change its fraction to a like fraction. So since we have now the LCD, we have to make all our fractions to be like fractions. So how to make this? So we have 72 divided by 3 is 24 times 1 is 24. Next, 72 divided by 8 is 9 times 1 is 9. Next, we have 72 divided by 9 is 8 times 3 is 24. So we have here 24 over 72. And last, 72 divided by 12 is 6 times 1 is 6. So we have here 6 over 72. So now they are now like fractions. We can now add our numerator and place our total over the LCD. So 24 plus 9 plus 24 plus 6 is equal to 63. Okay, so now next, if necessary, we have to reduce our answer to lowest term. So since 72 and 63 has a GCF of 9, so 63 divided by 9 is 7, and 72 divided by 9 is 8. So the lowest term, or our final answer, is 7 over 8. Now let us proceed in adding mixed numbers. So we have here an example: 4 and 7 over 20 plus 6 and 3/5 plus 7 and 1/4. So in this method, we are going to separate first the fraction from the whole numbers, and we are going to add first the fractions. So the fractions are 7 over 20 plus 3/5 and 1/4. But then since these fractions are unlike fractions, so we have to look for the LCD first. So the LCD for these fractions is 20. Okay, so we now have an LCD in the value of 20. Now we already have raised our fraction by its LCD. Okay, now let's proceed to step 2 where we are going to add the whole numbers. So 4 plus 6 plus 7, that is 17. And to get the final answer, of course, we have to combine the result from our step 1 and step 2. So our step 1 result is 24 over 20. So since that is in improper fraction form, we have to simplify that. So the equivalent mixed number of this improper fraction 24 over 20 is 1 and 4 over 20. 4 over 20 is not yet in its lowest form, so we are still going to simplify this. So the GCF for this is very good, 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1 and 20 divided by 4 is 5. Now we are going to combine this 1 and 1/5 plus 17 is 18 and 1/5. Now we're done with addition of fraction. Let's proceed to subtraction of fractions. So in this part, we will learn to subtract like fractions, unlike fractions, a fraction from a whole number, and subtraction when borrowing is not or necessary. In a similar manner, like adding fractions, when fractions are like fractions, we subtract the numerators and place the total over the denominator. So for example, we have here 9 over 10 less 1 over 10. So we subtract the numerator, 9 minus 1 is 8, and of course, just copy its denominator. And then next, if necessary, reduce the answer to lowest term. So our answer earlier is 8 over 10. So it is not yet in its simplest form. So we have to simplify this. So we have to look for the GCF. And the GCF for this is very good, 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4 and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So our final answer is 4 over 5. Now we're done subtracting like fractions. Let's proceed in subtracting unlike fractions. So we have here an example, 5 over 8 less 2 over 64. In this example, our denominator is different. So we are subtracting unlike fractions here. So if fractions are unlike, we are going to determine first the LCD. So the LCD for this is 64. Okay, now we have an LCD. We are going to raise our fraction to its equivalent value. So 64 divided by 8 is 8 times 5 is 40. So we now have here 40 over 64, and next is 64 divided by 4 is 1 times 2 is 2. So 2 over 64. We now have like fractions here. Next is we subtract the numerators and place the answer over the LCD. So our LCD is 64. We are going to place at top of this the difference. So 40 minus 2 is 38. And then, if necessary, we have to reduce our answer to lowest term. So 38 over 64, the GCF of this is 2. So 38 divided by 2 is 19, and 64 divided by 2 is 32. So our final answer is 19 over 32. Subtracting a fraction from a whole number. So we have here an example, 7 minus 1/3. Okay, the first thing that we do is to subtract 1 from a whole number. So we have 7 as a whole number. We will deduct 1 from this. So our whole number remaining is only 6. And then the borrowed 1 from 7, we will write that as 1 as a fraction with the same denominator as the fraction to be subtracted. So in this case, the fraction to be subtracted is 1/3. Its denominator is 3. So, unable to write the borrowed 1 as a fraction, we will write this as 3 over 3. Now next, since 3/3 and 1/3 are now like fractions, we can now proceed in subtraction. Okay, so 3/3 minus 1/3 is equal to 2/3. Now let's add the remaining whole number earlier, the 6. So 6 plus 2/3 is equal to 6 and 2/3. So the final answer is 6 and 2/3. Or we simply do this. So 7 minus 1/3. So 6, and this one is the borrowed one from 7. So still this group is still 7 minus 1/3. So 6 minus 6 as a whole number, and our denominator is 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1 times 3 is 3, and then we copy the operation, which is subtraction, the minus sign here. And then 3 divided by 3 is 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, now we proceed to subtraction. So 3 minus 1 is 2, and then we copy the whole number and then its denominator. So the final answer is 6 and 2/3. Subtracting mixed numbers, and we have here an example, 2 and 1/2 less 1 and 1/8. So the first thing that we do is to write our fractions in the improper fractions. So 2 and 1/2 will become 5 halves, and 1 and 1/8 will become 9 over 8. So since these fractions are unlike fractions, we will look for the LCD. So the LCD for 2 and 8 is 8. Okay, so we have here 8 divided by 2 is 4 times 5 is 20. Let's copy the operation, which is subtraction, the minus sign here. And then 8 divided by 8 is equal to 1 times 9 is 9. So 20 minus 9 is 11, and our denominator is 8. Like other operations that we have solved earlier, we have to reduce, or we have to simplify our answer. So since our answer is in improper form, we have to simplify this into a mixed number. So this is 1 and 3 over 8. I still have here another example. So subtracting when borrowing is not necessary. So for example, we have here 6 and 3/4 minus 5 over 8. So we are going to raise first our fraction to its equivalent fraction by using its LCD. So 6 and 3/4 will become 6 and 6 over 8. And then the 5/8 will still remain 5/8. Now, since we can now deduct 5 from 6, we can now proceed in subtraction. So 6 minus 0, since there is no other whole number, so 6 minus 0 is 6, and then 6 minus 5 is 1. Then copy the denominator, which is 8. So the answer is 6 and 1/8. So step 3 may be skipped already, since our answer is already in its simplest form. Another example is when subtracting when borrowing is necessary. So for example, we have here 3 and 1/2 less 1 and 3/4. So the first step, of course, since it is in unlike fractions, we have to raise the fraction to its equivalent by its LCD. So 3 and 1/2 will become to 3 and 2/4, and then the 1 and 3/4 will still the same as 1 and 3/4 since we use 4 as LCD. And now, since we cannot deduct 3 from 2, we have to proceed to step 2. Step 2 is to borrow from whole number. So since we have here 3 and 2/4, so we'll borrow 1 from 3, so 3 will become 2. And then the borrowed 1 from 3, we will write this as 4/4. So in adding this, 2 plus 4 will become 6, and then 4. Since this is in similar fractions, we will just copy this, so we have a denominator of 4. Now, since we cannot borrow 3 from 6, we cannot proceed to subtraction. So 2 minus 1 is 1, 6 minus 3 is 3, and we have similar denominators. We'll just copy this. So the answer is 1 and 3/4. Step 4 can be skipped since our answer is already in its simplest form. Let us now proceed in the third fundamental operation in fraction, which is multiplication. So we will learn here the multiplying proper and improper fractions, and of course multiplying mixed numbers. Multiplying proper improper fractions. So step 1 is to multiply the numerator and the denominator. We have here an example: 5/1 times 1/6 times 4/7. So let us just simply multiply the numerator. So 5 times 1 is 5 times 4 is 20. And then next, the denominator. 1 times 6 is 6 times 7 is 42. And then step 2 will reduce the answer to lowest term. So since 20/42 is not in its simplest form, we will look for the GCF of this. So the GCF of this is 2. So 20 divided by 2 is 10. 42 divided by 2 is 21. Let us now proceed to multiplying mixed numbers. Step 1 is to convert our mixed numbers to improper fractions. So we have here an example: 2 and 1/3 multiplied to 1 and 1/2. So 2 and 1/3 will be converted into mixed numbers. It will become 7/3, and 1 and 1/2 will become 3/2. And now we will multiply the numerator and the denominator. So 7 times 3 is 21, and 3 times 2 is 6. For the step 3, of course, we have to simplify. So 21/6 is in improper form of fractions. So we will convert this into a mixed number. So this will become 3 and 1/2. And now we're down with the last fundamental operations on fraction, and that is a division. So for the division of fractions, we will learn on how to divide proper and improper fractions, and of course, dividing mixed numbers. Dividing proper and improper fraction. Step 1, we have to invert or get the reciprocal by turning upside down the divisor or the second fraction. So for example, we have here 1/8 divided by 2/6. 1/8 will still be the same as 1/8, and then the 2/6 will be turned upside down to get its reciprocal. So the reciprocal of this will be 6/2. Step 2, we have to change the division sign to a multiplication and then multiply the fraction. And of course, we have to change the division sign into a multiplication sign. So and then we will proceed to multiplication. 1 times 6 is 6, and 8 times 2 is 16. Then simplify if necessary. So since our answer is not yet in its simplest form, we have to find its GCF. So the GCF for this is 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. Or we simply do this. 1 over 8 divided by 2 over 6. What we were going to do here is to do a cross multiplication. So what are we going to multiply? The numerator to denominator. So 1 times 6 is 6 and 8 times 2 is 16. And then we are going to reduce or to simplify our answer. So that will become 3 over 8. Now let's proceed in dividing mixed numbers. Step 1, we have to convert first our mixed number to improper fraction. So we have here an example, 8 and 3/4 divided by 2 and 5/6. So to convert this into an improper fraction, 4 times 8 is 32 plus 3 is 35 over 4. And then the 2 and 5/6 will become 6 times 2 is 12 plus 5 is 17. So we have here 17 over 6. Now the step 2 is to invert the divisor and multiply. So 35 over 4. Since we are going to invert the divisor, the 17 over 6 is now 6 over 17. And then we'll proceed to multiplication. So 35 times 6 is 210 and 4 times 17 is 68. And of course, we have to simplify our answer. So 210 is 210 over 68 will become 3 and 6 over 68. But the 6 over 68 is not yet in its simplest form. We have to reduce this. We have to look for the GCF. So the GCF for this is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 68 divided by 2 is 34. So the final answer is 3 and 3/4. 3 and 34. Now we're done reviewing the 4 fundamental operations on fraction. Now we are going to proceed on applying those operations in real-life problems that involves fraction. Let's begin. We have here an example. Mrs. Dizon sells 3/4 tons of fish per day. In how many days will she be able to sell 12 tons of fish? So she wants to know how many days will she be able to sell all the 12 tons of fish that she will be selling. So the solution for this, of course, Mrs. Dizon will have to divide the 12 tons by 3/4. So our operation to be used here is division of fraction. In division of fraction, we have to invert the divisor or get the reciprocal of the divisor. So 12 divided by 3/4. From this 12 divided by 3/4, we are now going to get the reciprocal of the divisor and then proceed to multiplication. So 3/4 will become 4 over 3, and then the divisor or the division sign will be changed to a multiplication. And now since 12 is a whole number, let us put 1 over under 12, so that will become 12 over 1. So now let's proceed in multiplication. 12 times 4 is 48, and then 1 times 3 is 3. 48 divided by 3 is 16. So it means Mrs. Dizon will be able to sell the 12 tons of fish in 16 days. Another example that we have here is Jomar earned 1,230 for working 6 hours. How much will he earn if he works 7.5 hours? So what are the given for this? So the given is the earnings for 6 hours. But then we are looking for the earnings for 7.5 hours. So what are we going to do? We have to solve first his earnings for every hour. So 1,230 divided by 6, that will be 205 per hour. So from that, we can now solve for how much will he earn if he works 7.5 hours. So 205 times 7.5 hours. So 205 times 7 and 1/2. Now let us first convert this into an improper fraction that will become 15 over 2. And then this one, 205, let us put the denominator 1. Now let us proceed to multiplication. 205 times 15 is 3075. And then divided by 2, so the earnings for 7.5 hours working will be 1,537 pesos and 50 centavos. If we are not going to apply the fractions here, we can also use the decimal. So 205 times 7 and 50. So that is still the same. That will lead to our answer 1,537 pesos and 50 centavos. Let us now proceed in solving problems related to percent. The problems related to percent are to determine the percent of a number, to find what percent one number is of another number, and of course to find a number when percent of it is known. Determine the percent of a number. So we are going to do here is to change the percent to fraction or decimal and then multiply. And we have to remember that the word of means multiply. So of course, in doing this, we have two ways of determining the percent of a number. The first one is using fraction and then the other one is using a decimal. So we have here an example. What is the 30% of a 60? Let's do first using fraction. So we have to change first the percent into a fraction. So 30% will become 30 over 100 multiplied to 60. So that will become 18, since 130 times 60 is 1,800 divided by 100 is 18. How about using decimal? So 30% will convert this into decimal, so that will become 30 hundredths. So 30 hundredths times 60 is still equal to 18. Another example here is, what is 85% of 985? So of course, using fraction, we have to convert first the percent into a fraction, so that will become 85 over 100 times 985 over 1, since 985 is a whole number. So 85 times 985 is equal to 83,725. 100 times 1 is 100. This one is not in its lowest form, so enable for us to get an easier way on how to divide this. Let us reduce first, but in your case you can still proceed in division without reducing the fraction. So but here we reduce the fraction first. So we look for the GCF first. So the GCF is 25. So 83,725 divided by 25 is 3,349 over 4. And then we divide. The 85% of 985 is 837 pesos, or 837 and 25. And by using decimal, of course, 85% will become 85 hundredths times 985 is equal to 837 and 25 also. Now let us proceed in finding what percent one number is of another number. So take the number after the of and divide it into the number next to is. Then change the answer to a percent. So we have here an example. 35 is what percent of 175? So from this, take the number after the of. So after the of, that is 175, and we will divide that into a number next to is. So the number next to is 35. So 35 divided by 175, or 35 over 175. Reduce this in lowest form, but then of course it's still up to you if you could proceed to dividing that, since we will also arrive in the same answer. So 1 over 5 is equal to 2/10 or 20%. So that is, we change our answer, the 2/10 to a percent, so that is 20%. So 35 is 20% of 175. Next example number 2, 27 is what percent of 90? So the number after the of is 90, and the number next to is 27. So 27 divided by 90, or 27 over 90, reduce in lowest term by using the GCF of 9, so that is 3 over 10. So 3 over 10, we will get the decimal number 3/10. 3/10 convert into a percent, so that will become 30%. 27 is 30% of 90. Now here, find what percent one number is of another number. So in equation method, that is turning the question word for word into an equation. So change percent to decimal or fraction. Let us remember this. What will be substituted by the letter x, and is substituted by equal sign, and of is substituted by a multiplication sign. Let's see the following example. Example number 1, 20% is what percent of 80? So 20 is what percent of 80? So that is why the x is being multiplied to 80 in this equation. So to proceed in our computation, we have to divide both sides by 80. So it will become 20 over 80, and x multiplied to 80 divided by 80, and then we cancel this out, so the remaining will be x and 20 over 80. So to proceed, x is equal to 1/4 since we reduce this fraction, and to convert this into percent, we have to convert the fraction 1/4 first to decimal, and then the decimal from decimal will convert this into percent. So 25 hundredths will become 25%. Therefore 20 is 25% of 80. Another example, 35 is what percent of 175? So 35 for the equal sign, and then what is the x, the unknown, and then of what percent is 175. And then to continue computing 35 over 175, because we have to divide that both sides to cancel this, so the remaining will be x is equal to 35 over 175, or x is equal to 1/5, and then convert this into a decimal, and then from decimal convert this into a percent. So 20 hundredths to 20%. Therefore 35 is 20% of 175. Finding a number when percent of it is known. So what are you going to do? Take the number of percent, change it into a decimal or fraction, and divide it to the other number. So now we have here first example. 40 is 20% of what number? So 40 in mathematical statement, this will be 40 is equal to 20% of the unknown number. So we change this into a decimal. So 40 divided by 0.20 is equal to 0.20x divided by 0.20, since we are going to divide it to the other number. So this one will be cancelled out, so the remaining will be x, and then 40 over 20 is equal to 200. Now, what if we are going to use a fraction? So, this will become like this. 40 over 1/5 is equal to 40 over 1. And then, since it is division, we will change that division sign into a multiplication sign. And then we'll proceed to multiplication by getting the reciprocal of our divisor. So, 40 40 times 5 is 200, and 1 times 1 is 1. So 200 divided by 1 is still 200. Next example is 60 is 50% of what number? So 60 is equal to 50% of the unknown number, or 60 divided by 0.50 or 1/2, and then is equal to 0.50x divided by 0.50. So this will become cancelled. So the remaining will be x is equal to 60 over 0.50. So that's it. And then we will divide this. The answer is 120. So same goes with using the fraction. Okay, so 60 is 50% of 120. Thank you so much. See you in our next video lesson.